Welcome to the BizFix, a podcast about self-awareness and straight talk at the intersection of meaning and money, aka what it really takes to build a business that combines one's personal values with their business goals. I'm your host, Drew Coven, Managing Director of LDR Ventures, an LA-based venture capital group. I'm a global CEO turned venture startup investor who wants to provide real takeaway value for you. Hey, if you've got a plan or idea to share, please check out our website, thebizfix.com, and make sure to send us a message. We're not about fame and glory, just telling the real story. Now let's get started. All right, everybody. Now let's get started and start game changing. I'm here today with Ryan Williams, author of The Influencer Economy and one of the absolute best podcasters out there today. We're going to get personal with Ryan, so I hope he's ready. Going to learn about his journey, what got him here today, and we're going to talk a little bit about his book, The Influencer Economy, how to launch your idea, share it with the world, and thrive in the digital age. By the way, go check out influencereconomy.com to see his handsome face. Welcome, Ryan.
Thanks, Drew, for having me on.
So, I was doing a little bit of research, and you've got quite a fascinating background. You started out as a stand-up comic. Don't take this the wrong way, but you don't look very funny to me.
Yeah, if my wife was here, she would agree with you. So, yeah, totally.
You've shared in your podcasts, and this is getting serious here. Start out with a little bit of joke, a little bit of brevity, but we'll get right into it. You've shared in your podcasts that you're suffering from depression since your early 20s. There's a lot of stigma around this stuff. People living with this mask or shield of protection, if you will. You okay talking about this?
Absolutely.
Cool. Just love to get your experience.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Yeah, let's do it.
So my depression really was something I didn't know I had until my early 20s when I didn't want to leave my apartment. I lived in Washington, D.C., and I was 22 years old, and I had dishes stacked up in the kitchen sink for weeks. My bed was a mess and was never really made, and I had beer bottles and soda cans strewn across my desk. And it looked like I was still in college, yet I was a professional in my life. And ultimately, I did what most rational people would do, is I turned to stand-up comedy to help get out of my depressed state. And ultimately, I spent the better part of my 20s working a day job. I was at a nonprofit in Washington, D.C., and I did comedy at night. And was really struggling to breathe at times, but here I am, so I got through it all.
Now, how do you get started in comedy? Because I've always thought about becoming a stand-up comic, but never really. I would think for somebody who has challenges with depression, or in my case, you've offered some personal stuff. I've suffered with anxiety myself. Am I good enough? Am I smart enough? Can I get this done? How do you get up there on the stage? Because I would think that's the absolute toughest thing to do, to get in front of people.
Right. Well, I think I can relate to you about imposter syndrome, where you feel like you're not good enough and you don't believe that you're the right person to do this. And oftentimes in stand-up comedy, you don't think you can do it, because I can be funny in conversation with you, but being funny in front of a room of people who are drunk, eating greasy chicken wings, smoking cigarettes at a dive bar in Baltimore, Maryland, which is where I was getting started. My first show, I got so beaten down. Looking at me, I'm wearing my glasses. I got called the worst. I got called Harry Potter that never gets laid. Can I say that on the show?
You can say. I'm not so sure whether or not Harry Potter got laid or not. Harry Potter might have gotten the most action.
But they were just throwing everything at me. I didn't get through my set. It was so hard. And you have to go to open mic nights to really practice your material. So I've done comedy 50, 60 times.
And that, would you say 50, 60 times and then got comfortable? Or after 50, 60 times, you're still working through the same
You're
stuff?
Uncomfortable at 150 times. And you have to cut your teeth, practice, get your jokes down, and really have your material. And my recommendation for anyone doing comedy or anyone really doing a PowerPoint at work presenting to an audience is get through your set. And realize there's going to be lows, and people may be bored. In comedy, they can heckle you. But just get through your set and finish it, and you'll feel better because you did all you could do.
So that's actually a very interesting point to go on. Would you say that that's one of the key things you took away from those experiences that you're now able to apply to what you're doing today?
Absolutely. In the world we live in with entrepreneurship, you work with some really, let's say, colorful personalities, some really on-the-edge people that take a lot of risks, and their personalities are volatile, and you have to deal with a lot of head cases, to be honest. You know these people.
Oh, I know plenty of them.
And so I think I've had some really, really tough, incredibly narcissistic bosses that have made me present to them my vision for my job in marketing. And I got through that because I have had people heckle me, call me nasty names in smoke-filled bars in the worst sections of Washington, D.C.
Sounds like some of the board meetings and executive meetings I had to present in front of. I don't know about Maryland or some of these interesting spots, but the dynamics are very similar.
Right. So people, I wouldn't say they're out to get you in business, but you got to have your guard up and deal with the crowd.
Yeah, it's interesting the parallels between doing stand-up and when you're getting up and performing in front of a board again, or you're performing or you're presenting. I guess there's a fine line between performing and presenting. But at the end of the day, you're looking for people's approval, whether you're selling an idea or you're telling a joke. By the way, what's your best joke?
None of my jokes were good.
Yeah, I figured as much.
They were terrible. I called one of my ex-girlfriends, I said she came from the swamp, and like that went over well. But I made fun of myself.
With her? With your girlfriend or with the crowd?
Ex-girlfriend.
Oh, okay. Was she an ex when you told the joke?
Yeah.
Or? Okay, there you go.
And then I had a lot of self-deprecation, making fun of myself for my own. And that's one thing I learned too is you like the advice I got was you have to make guys in the crowd feel like they're cool and you're not hitting on their girlfriend or their significant other there. You have to disarm people. Mm-hmm. And I think that self-deprecation, I still use that as you do as well.
Yep, absolutely.
More you can make, see yourself, not take yourself too seriously, even in a meeting with high stakes, venture capitalists, then you become more real.
Yeah, and it's a really great point because in meeting with lots of entrepreneurs and understanding where they are and what their business challenges are and how we can add value to helping them grow, that authenticity, that honesty, that sincerity is so important. And telling it with a little bit of humor,
right?
Because it shouldn't be monotone. I mean, we want people to be comfortable the same way you're going and telling jokes and getting an audience prepared. They've gone in, they've spent money, they're drinking.
Oh, yeah.
It's important that they get some value from their investment.
Right.
So really, what are your thoughts in terms of how you transitioned? Because that's a fantastic experience. I mean, that's got to be one of the bravest things, to get up in front of a room of people knowing that you have just as much chance, probably a greater chance of failure than success. How do you translate that, or how have you translated that experience into all these great things that you're doing today? And there are so many. I've got pages and listened to your podcasts and your presentations, and they're fantastic. So yeah, talk a little bit about, if you would, how you made the transition to what you're doing, and let's let the audience know a little bit about this.
Well, you talk about self-awareness, right? And having your own internal compass, your own gauge to know what you're good at. And I'm a firm believer, there's a great book called The Dip by Seth Godin.
Sure.
And he talks about how you need to quit things or stick with things when you're going through the dip. And you need to figure out, are you going to be the best in the world at what you're doing? And if you can't validate that, then it's time to pivot into something else. And I realized, as you pointed out, that maybe I'm not the funniest looking guy in the world, but I could market these shows like gangbusters. I could market comedy shows, pack amphitheaters, work with comedy festivals, dive bars, restaurants, whatever. And I peaked as a comedian at the Improv. It was a big deal for me, huge opportunity, but that was all I was going to do. And I ended up becoming a comedy show marketer. So I got Comedy Central comedians calling me up saying, how do you pack the house? How can you do this? When I can get 5 people on my show, you can get 250. So I knew I was onto something, and I ended up moving to Los Angeles with my then girlfriend, now my wife.
Not the swamp
Not
person.
the swamp girl.
Not the swamp girl.
Not the swamp girl. That was just for laughs.
Okay, just making sure.
But my wife at the time, who, like you, didn't think I was that funny looking or funny, so I had just a penchant for entrepreneurship and started my own thing. And then I worked for a few startups in Los Angeles. One sold to Disney, and we did their social media analytics. And then at Machinima, I really found my groove, which is it's a gaming network. For those who don't know, if you go to YouTube and you watch video game content, oftentimes it's someone playing Minecraft or a game like Call of Duty, and they're doing narration over it. And they're telling funny stories, and they're called vlogs, video logs.
Sure, yep.
And we helped market the company, and I loved it. We helped launch Minecraft, which sold for $2.5 billion
huge.
to Microsoft. We had no marketing budget. And I tell you all this because we were a great team, cutting edge, building awesome technology. And I was able to build our marketing team from scratch. And we sold for $100 million recently to Warner Brothers, which for me was great closure on the job. So ultimately, I was able to pivot and redefine my career as a marketer.
So it sounds like through comedy, when you got up on stage, you kind of honed your craft, but you really understood the business of comedy.
Right.
Whether one tells jokes really well and makes people laugh, that's one aspect of it. That's the performance aspect of it. Then there's this whole other side, getting people into the room, filling the seats, getting them to drink.
Yeah.
So there's that whole other piece it sounds like you mastered with that heightened sense of self-awareness. So can you talk a little bit about how you came to the realization and when the light bulb went off and you said, I'm really good at the business of bringing people to places more so than the business of telling jokes?
Well, there's all about, problem solving is how businesses really operate now. It's like if you don't solve a market problem, then there's no need for you and someone else will do the job. So I saw a bunch of restaurants that had no comedy acts and they had no music acts on certain nights of the week. So I'd say, look, I'll do a free show. I'll book the comedians. We'll market it for a month. And let's take your worst night of the week and I'll book a comedy venue like we're doing the Improv at your bar. And we would pack the house. And then I would give them a month to not have me do the comedy show and no one would be there. And I'd walk in and say, oh, where's everyone? So then I would say, well, what do you want? This is my rate. And I just built, a franchise model where after time I didn't have to even prove myself because people would come to my shows and there was people standing in the aisles. So I gave it out for free at first. And then I said, well, now you don't have it anymore. There's no one in your bar. And now I got Comedy Central comedians coming next month. If you want it, here's my fee.
So you, in the words of business plans, you really identified an opportunity and validated the product market fit.
Right. Product market, saw folks that had empty seats, saw an opportunity to drive revenue, to drive food sales, was a natural fit. But you had that unique understanding from being a performer as well as to being a marketer and then saying, where else could I apply? What other markets, what other businesses, restaurants can I bring this to and help create value and profitability? Absolutely.
It's fantastic. I mean, it's amazing how the going from one place, and we talk about pivots all the time and, various different types of buzzwords and acronyms.
Right.
But it really sounds like it's common sense and visibility, like understanding, seeing the bigger theme. It's not necessarily what's in front of us. It wasn't being up on stage. It was what's going on around you.
And having I don't want to give myself too much credit, but the self-awareness was that I don't need to be the star. I don't need to be the comedian. And it's okay. I can accept that. Not everyone's going to be the CEO. Not everyone's going to start the company. But it's okay to be part of the business and then provide value for those other people that can't figure out their problems.
Yeah, that self-awareness, and I'm glad that you brought that up in those particular words, because isn't it in so many ways about self-awareness and seeing the forest for the trees and what's important to you and really where do you want to take your life? What's your why, so to speak? So
right.
What is your why?
Now my why is pivoted again into the world of these people that you would call influencers. And so when I was at Machinima, we had all these YouTube creators that were making videos that would get millions and millions and tens of millions of video views. And we launched Minecraft, right? This game, no marketing budget. It sold for $2.5 billion. And it blew my mind that we were there at the early phase. And we helped launch the alpha and the beta and go to market. So then I did a bunch of research on celebrities. And there's a whole trend in technology, really culture, is we need celebrities. We need someone to tweet about our product. And I did the research, and I found out celebrities are mascots. Celebrities are there in a superficial way, but they don't move the needle in social media. So I went to Kim Kardashian's tweets and Ryan Seacrest's Instagram. I found they convert like a banner ad. For those people that aren't in marketing, I imagine most people hate banner ads. You click on them on accident on your phone and you get so mad, right? Because they don't convert. But on social media, Kim Kardashian's worse than a banner ad if she's tweeting about her show or a Vegas nightclub. But people with influence, they make a dent in the world. And if we Google people in 20 years, someone who's on Instagram with a bunch of likes because they're sexy, they look sexy in jeans, or you may want to have sex with them, isn't going to be in the time machine of, wow, this person really made a dent in the world. They are not a true influencer. And so I'm fascinated by how online movements work. And I define someone as an influencer who can collaborate with their community to make a small idea big overnight.
So let's talk about that. You wrote this amazing book, The Influencer Economy. Again, I'm amazed. You get up, you start telling jokes on stage, you wake up, you're going to write a book.
Yeah.
I mean, tons of people want to write a book. How did you get started?
Well, it's years later. So I had a lot of hard knocks to know like that the book was the right time at the right moment, because I was in this movement of these influencers and everyone wanted to connect with celebrities in technology. I said, no, that's a terrible strategy. We'll find the right people that will influence your product to go to market. And so I started interviewing people on my podcast. I had this big vision for a book, and I loved it. Like I got to talk to Seth Godin, who's one of my idols, that I mentioned earlier, and Brad Feld, and all these
great people.
These great visions. And I mashed up their old world business thinking with new media, YouTube, Snapchat, Instagram thinking. So I was like, okay, we have this way that business has been done for years, that these predominantly older, white males have written these great books and these great resources. But these new creators on YouTube and Instagram and all these social platforms are turning that on its head. So I mashed the two together, wrote the book. It's now part of my consulting business. And it's a framework that anyone can apply to launching a company.
Fantastic. When you thought about doing it, and then when you actually jumped in, business plan, how's it going to make money?
Yeah.
What are you thinking there? Because
it was terrifying.
Big leap of faith.
It was terrifying. I just had my wife gave birth to our first baby, which was a catalyst, I think, in a lot of ways to really self-actualize into this is what I was going to do. But yeah, it's a grind. It's still a grind. The podcast, I've done 100 plus episodes, which I'm really proud of. And the book, we trended it in Amazon. It was a top 50 book in creativity. I spoke at Google last week, right? But I'm still paying my dues. And that's like what I've really learned through this is you're a very successful marketer for Steve Madden. You're now an investor in startups. You never stop paying your dues.
It's a great point. And I think it's really important for everybody listening in to understand that you're never really truly done with your journey. A lot of times people think, have gotten here, but we're people. We have the next big idea or the next big thing. It'd be personal, be family. Every time we master one thing, we realize we haven't mastered it at all. There's more to learn. There's more to grow.
Yeah.
So in terms of thinking about, work-life balance, because you're in the grind, you just said it, like you're still working at it. How do you maintain a balance? You've got 2 kids, lovely wife, great family. How do you kind of find that off switch, if you will?
A lot of conversations with my wife and I don't go as well as I hope because she thinks I'm obsessed about it. And so having kids makes you not work all the time, and it makes you turn things off on the weekends and nights. So that's been good. I think everyone needs a supportive partner, in whether you're married or you're dating or whatever. It could be even a friend. You need anchors, people to really ground you, because you can get caught up. This, you've had heart surgery because you overworked.
Oh, geez, I know it. The doctors know it. The X-rays show it.
Yeah. So I still have a fear that I'm going to be depressed again.
And I think you're like everybody else in terms of talking straight up. That's true. We all have those fears. Entrepreneurs are like actors. I mean, we fear that if this isn't a hit, we're done.
Yeah.
It's a very similar mindset. And the more people I talk with, the themes are very similar. I'm curious to know, from your experience, over 100 podcasts, lectures, speaking, common themes that are coming across that you're hearing, and what can we share with the listeners here in terms of, hey, it's okay if you're feeling this way, and here's some takeaway value that you can apply right away to start doing some of the things, or feeling certain ways. It's okay to feel those ways.
Yeah. The first thought is that people need to pilot ideas more. And if you're curious about starting a blog, a podcast, writing a book, just take 10% of your time each week to do this and to pilot a book and write it. Send it to 5 friends, get feedback. You don't need to be a New York Times bestseller, but oftentimes when the barrier to entry is low in something, it's worth experimenting. And I learned this from Brad Feld, who is a mutual friend for both of us.
Sure.
He's a very successful investor and a mentor to a lot of entrepreneurs. And he started blogging back in '04, and he was an early blogger. And he said, you know what, if I blog and it fails, who cares? It's writing on the web. And now he's one of the more prolific writers in investment and venture capital. So for me, one recommendation to anyone here is buy a domain. You have an idea, it's a side project, or even for your business, go to DreamHost, buy the domain, and make it real. Also, go make a logo if you have an idea. That makes it real. Go write a blog post with your point of view about your business or your idea, and don't even show it to anyone, and just park it. I bought the influencer economy domain 6 years ago, and I knew I had crazy jobs that were super intense that I couldn't write the book or start the podcast. But I had that one post that 30 people saw, and that kept me grounded and anchored. And to make your ideas real, take those small steps, because those little piloted ideas could become your next big business, and you may not realize it.
That's great experience share. And, I think that, again, it's so wonderful to hear the story behind the story, because you've done great. You're definitely having a huge impact on lots of people's lives. You're a thought leader in the industry. But for people to understand, you got to work hard at your craft. And you got to work smart, but you got to do the work. There are no shortcuts. And if you do the work and you dream big and you're willing to put the effort in, who knows? You might just achieve it.
Have a big vision, always. And pitch that big vision to people. And then have the executable smaller steps. Like my book was the big vision. My podcast got me there.
Yeah, we call that in kind of the down and dirty way, shameless self-promotion. You've got to believe.
Yeah.
You've got to be your best friend, or you might end up being your worst foe. So it really comes down to us as individuals making that choice. Are we in, and are we going to be behind ourselves, or are we not, and we're going to fight against ourselves? That's fantastic shit.
Yeah.
So a couple of random questions. I like to do this. I'm influenced by that Lipton guy on the Actors Studio. So in a kind of Lipton-esque way, jeans or chinos?
Jeans.
There you go. Beaches or mountains?
Beaches.
Favorite animal?
A leopard.
That's a good choice. One word others would use to describe you?
Persevering.
The one word you would use to describe yourself?
Unbelievable.
Your favorite food to indulge?
Barbecue potato chips. And that doesn't sound like an indulging, but I eat the bag in 30 seconds.
Favorite type of music?
I'll have to say the Grateful Dead. A lot of people hate the Dead and bands like Fish, but jam music, I've grown out of it, but I still will throw it on YouTube every once in a while.
That's a great choice. Great choices. If money didn't matter, and I'm not suggesting it does, different people value money differently, what would you be doing?
I would be... Are you talking about what I do professionally or just personally?
It can be anything. How would you spend your time?
Oh, I'd go and rent a villa in Italy for the whole summer and invite friends and family to come and go for their vacation to the villa.
I'm asked this question constantly, so I figure I got to ask you the question. How much sleep do you get a day, and how highly do you value sleep?
I get usually 6 to 7 hours. I really don't value sleep enough. I'm always distracted. I always want to stay up later because I have kids and I want to do stuff when they're asleep, and they don't go to bed sometimes till 9:30. But yeah, I don't get enough. I don't value it enough.
What do you do to escape, to get away from it all? And that's, if you want to get away, like family, business, where's that special place, or that just I'm going off the grid?
I do yoga and I do meditation. And I've meditated a lot more over the last couple of years. But yeah, yoga. When I do that, lie down on that mat, do shavasana. For those that haven't done yoga, I recommend trying it once. But that's my recuperation time.
So I have had some unbelievable gems of sayings people have imparted to me. One that I like to use is never confuse activity with results, never confuse age with ability. Any gems that you've created along the way as a professional writer and a comic, or things that you've heard that have stuck with you and you apply to life?
Yeah, the first advice my buddy Sanjay gave me, we were colleagues at Machinima, and I left Machinima to go to another startup. And he said, understand that most companies fail that are just starting out. And new businesses have a 10% success rate. And it's all about, do you want to enjoy the journey? And can you learn new skills? Can you build your network? And can you understand that this would fail and you have to find a new job in a year and a half? But you have to realize, will you regret not taking that opportunity or not? And if you regret it, then you should go for it.
Perfect follow-up question for you here. Let's see, I'm praising myself for my perfect questions.
Yeah.
What does success mean to you?
Success for me is a metric that I've actually changed this the last couple of years. So I used to think success was like making a lot of money and billing a bunch of hours and saving and accruing wealth. Success for me is having options to live life when you want to live it. And I define it as, if I want to pick up my kids from school at 4 p.m., I can program my day to make that possible. If I want to take a vacation and still work a couple hours while I'm at the beach, then I want that opportunity. And that wealth really is defined through success in my old definition. But now success is more about programming my life how I want to live it, and understanding that lots of wealth isn't really the best business model.
So, again, fantastic share. And I could probably spend the next several days or weeks talking about this stuff with you. But, what I'd really like to do is thank you so much for being here today and for spending time and being so open. And I want to kind of give some parting thoughts to the audience out there. Everything happens for us, not to us. We're all in this life together, as you've heard Ryan talk about today. Each person, every experience gets us closer to our true selves and the lives we're meant to live. The best way to get started, people, and this is an absolute constant, we promise you, is you got to get started. Thanks for tuning in, and make sure to spread the word. Hey, when you get a chance, please check out influencereconomy.com. Website is ldrventures.com. We're going to be doing these podcasts regularly, and just looking forward to sharing the love and putting the information out there and helping as many people out as we can on their path to success.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.